Hello everyone, this is Andy Nguyen, and this is the Volcano 660. The Volcano 660 is a premium custom mechanical keyboard and is based off of the Leopold FC660C. If you want to start at something more common, this is a 60% keyboard. So a full-size keyboard, there would be arrow keys, nav button, and number pad. This right here has it all chopped off. So this is pretty much what is most common in custom mechanical keyboards. For a 660 layout, it's like this, well, with arrow keys and some navigation buttons. You would imagine this to be very similar to a 65%, but the main difference is there is not a full column of navigation buttons and they're staggered out. This little spacing provides a different aesthetic, and it typically does not have a right blocker for the arrow keys. It's really just an aesthetic preference. So this board, it has a typing angle of 5 degrees and it makes it not very steep. Some are really steep and high angle as 11 degrees. I'm pretty comfortable around 5 degrees to 7.5. Anywhere there, I can adjust to it. If it's taller or more steep, you're more likely to need a wrist rest. If it's a little bit more flat, like this Volcano 660, then you can do without wrist rest. And of course, the star of the show, you really have to take note of the color of this case. This is the Quantum Blue, and right now the way my big light is hitting it, it looks pretty teal, but depending on where you look at it, depending on what light hits it, natural light, artificial light, it can end up looking a little blue. So you can have blue or teal, and that kind of like chameleon of colors really makes it interesting to look at. I love the color myself. It's also not a very common color. If you're looking at custom mechanical keyboards, you often find black, you find gray, you find silver. Sometimes you get the E white, and sometimes it's more common to find navy. But a color like this, it's a little bit more rare. The board doesn't come in the color that you like. You end up having to Cerakote it, which is a process of refinishing it to change the color. And that costs anywhere from $100 to $200. And that's just for the aesthetic. That's not even the board itself. So for the group buy price of this board, the Volcano 660 ran about $330, and that is a really good price point for the quality of this board. Unfortunately, on the secondhand market now, like with everything else, the price is way too high. It reaches $900, $1,000. If you can find it cheaper, don't quote me on my price. I'm just stating what I've seen. The problem with custom mechanical keyboards, at least the nice ones, is that the people that have them, they're not going to be letting go of them. And if they are, it's going to be at a really high price or a low price. It can be either. But the supply is more of an issue than the price. One of the main features of this board is that it has a seamless design. So if you look here, you don't see a line between the top and bottom piece of the case because they don't meet at the middle. It actually screws in at the bottom. You can see right there. What does this matter? Well, when you have a seam in the middle, like this IDB60, which is a pretty affordable board at group buy, you can see the seam pretty clearly. Any issue will be highlighted pretty severely. So if there's any kind of mismatch between the top and bottom piece, it will show in that line. And for people that are in custom mechanical keyboards, that lack of clean aesthetic really bothers them. It bothers me too. It doesn't feel as premium, doesn't feel as clean. So to remedy that, if you have a seamless design, one, it looks super smooth from top to bottom. Two, if there's any kind of angle mismatch, it'll be on the bottom of the board and you won't really see it. You may be able to see it if you turn it around, but in day-to-day use, it won't be there. And that is really nice. If you can tell from all the shots where I brought the keyboard up to the camera, this is a chonker. It's a pretty heavy feeling solid board. And the weight comes out to be 5.3 pounds or 2.2 or 2.3 kilograms. It's giving me an arm workout right now. And the other thing about the case is that there's pretty large bezels. Some people may not like that. A lot of people in the hobby, I wouldn't say a lot of people, there's a good chunk of people in the hobby, they really like the minimal look. So they want the bezels to be as tight as possible to the board. This board definitely has the larger, thicker bezels. It's not the heaviest board I've ever felt. It's solidly in the grouper of heavier boards, and heavier is better. When you have a nice custom mechanical keyboard that has a solid weight to it, it just feels quality, it feels premium. When you get a board and it feels light, you feel like it's a toy. But to revisit, oh man, this brass weight on the back is amazing. It has a little volcano thing, mountain thing. The weight is not PVD brass being the shiny one. I believe this is sandblasted, smoothly sandblasted, but the finish is not too rough. It's smooth, but it's not shiny. And I believe it will patina pretty well over time. So for the internals, this board is gasket mounted with a brass plate inside. Gasket mounts allow the plate to be isolated a little bit from the case. There's rubber gaskets between the case and the plate. This changes the sound signature, but it also affects the typing experience to an extent. For my personal taste, I prefer burger mounting and gasket mounting. Adding anything to kind of limit the vibrations will affect the sound in a way that's more pleasant to the ear. In terms of the typing experience, the brass plate, it's not that rigid. It doesn't feel that rigid to me. Of course, it is still kind of a firmer typing experience versus an FR4 plate or a polycarbonate plate or a palm plate, which are all softer materials. But for this board, I don't know it's really hard to put my finger on it, but the design is such that the typing experience is extremely comfortable. Between the typing angle, between the gasket mounting, even using this brass plate, which is one of the more rigid materials. I've heard this from a lot of other people as well. When they type on it, it just feels great. So for those of you who like RGB and lights, you can actually solder indicator lights to the top right of the board. It's smooth on the top and it's still metal, but there's less metal around those indicator lights, so the lights will actually shine through. You end up losing some points in the aesthetics department due to the large bezels. Everyone that has typed on a Volcano has loved the typing experience. It's top tier. Kind of hard to describe the sound signature. You just have to listen to sound tests between a gasket mounted board, between a burger mount board, between a top mount board, between a tray mount board, and a bottom mount board. Typically, I do not like tray mounts because they're found in cheaper boards, but the typing experience and the sound is going to vary depending on where you type on the board because the standoffs are in the middle of the board. For top mount, it is more even than a tray mount, but with top mount, it's just rigid because it's just a plate attached to the case. And for gasket and burger mount, there's rubber and isolation, so it really changes the sound signature in a more pleasant way. Unfortunately, during the group buy phase, a lot of people reported that there were ESD issues with their PCB. So the PCBs arrived dead on arrival. What is ESD? Well, ESD is electrostatic discharge. If the PCB is not designed to have some kind of ESD protection, usually around the USB port, or if it's just transported improperly, you can shock and short or fry your PCB even before using it. Be aware that the PCB can have some issues with ESD. To kind of insulate you from this issue, you can buy fiber insulating washers, and I link that in my kit.co page with all my keyboard stuff. It's going to be at the bottom. They're red, circular. You just put that in between the screw for your stabilizer, and that helps insulate you. And onto one of the little interesting, unique features of this board. It has a little beep. So when you plug it in, it just it beeps. One of the cool things that was done on the PC cases was that there was extra reinforcing for the screws, so this kind of prevented stripping of them in the case. Now we gotta appreciate the detail that goes into the weight. This is the stainless steel weight. On the board I'm reviewing, it's actually brass, but ooh, it is nice. And now to the pros and cons. I love the aesthetic and the typing feel of this board. I personally do not mind larger bezels. I like having a bigger board to kind of hold on to and pick up without like interfering with the keys. And the typing feel, oh man, this is definitely the top 2 or top 3 typing experiences I've had on a keyboard. It's so fun, it's so bouncy, it's so comfy, even for a brass plate. And most people don't like brass plate, like I mentioned before, because it's more rigid. But here, I could type on this for hours without issue. And especially if we gotta talk about the color again, this board looks sick. This color is amazing. Look at that. We got the GMK bento on there. Oof. So the Volcano 660 is just pure class. It has the premium look, it has the premium acoustics, and that has that nice design on the brass weight on the back, and the ano is clean, it has a seamless design. It's hard to find a board that's going to look and sound better than this. So to the cons, we got to mention the cons. It's a big boy, it's chunky, it has the large bezels, and not everyone is going to like that. Some people like the clean minimal look. I like my boards to have a little bit more character, so this is right up my alley. And the 660 layout, if you don't love the layout, you may end up hating it because of the lack of right arrow blocker. Some people have told me that in their 660 layout boards, they have mistyped because when they reach over to the arrow keys, they end up accidentally hitting the right control. I haven't experienced that. Also aesthetically, the arrows are kind of compressed in there. It looks a little bit cheaper, but that's just the design of the 660 layout. If you want a right arrow blocker, you can find them in the 65% keyboard kind of category. And of course, another con is, unfortunately, I've been making keyboard content and people always ask me like, how do I get this board? How much does this cost? I'm like, I don't want to tell you. because although the price at the group buy was $330, it's reaching close to $1,000 right now on the aftermarket, and that's just a really hard pill to swallow because it's a peripheral at the end of the day. And if you're not a full enthusiast and you're not kind of ingrained in the hobby, it's kind of be hard to accept that the board is going to cost $1,000. But that's the reality with group buy boards aren't being run anymore. It was made a while ago, the supply is limited, and the people that have it, they love it and they're not going to sell it. So for them to put it on the market, it's going to end up costing more. Of course, you can always wait for other group buys, but group buys end up taking anywhere from the shortest one being 3-month turnaround to the longest ones being like 6 to 8, and if there's any delays, even longer. But yeah, those are my thoughts. The Volcano 660, if you're able to get it at a reasonable price, if you know someone that's going to let it go for less than the secondhand market price, definitely a great buy. But if you're trying to get one secondhand, you better love that 660 layout, because that's the biggest con. And if you love the layout, you love the aesthetics, you love the color, the typing feel is unmatched, the acoustics are amazing. If that is something that you're looking for, go ahead and go get a Volcano 660. You're not going to regret it. It doesn't sound bad at all. Other boards like the Kiyu, they look great, they sound great, but the spacebar doesn't sound great. This board, the sound is top tier. I would not hesitate to recommend this if you had the budget and you're an enthusiast and you love the layout. Thank you for watching. Please let me know in the comment section below if you have any questions on this board. Please give me a like if you like this kind of content. Please subscribe to see more tech videos, keyboard videos. I do it all and I game sometimes. Yeah, thanks for watching. See you next time. Peace.